For all verified facts, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome to From the Front Lines. I'm Govindraj Ethiraj. A 19-year-old Dalit woman was allegedly gang raped by 4 upper caste men in Hathras, Uttar Pradesh. This happened about 2 weeks ago, and she was initially admitted to a district hospital with her tongue cut off and her spinal cord severely injured. She was later shifted to Aligarh Hospital, or rather hospital in Aligarh, and then the Safdarjung Hospital in New Delhi, where she died a few days ago. Now, the unusual development that followed this was also the hurried or seemingly hurried cremation of the body back in the village. Unclear at this point whether this was done with the consent of her family or not, but the cremation was definitely unusual, more so that it happened at 3 a.m. in the morning. This raises a few larger questions. One is, what is the role of a police when it comes to cases like this? What can we as ordinary citizens expect the police to do and to not do, particularly when it comes to sensitive cases like alleged rape, or in this case, maybe the beating up of a woman in the manner that she was, even if a rape did not happen, as is being suggested now. So, to discuss this, and now joined by Indira Jaising, the noted human rights lawyer and a senior advocate at the Supreme Court of India, and also founder of the Lawyers Collective. Ms. Jaising, thank you very much for joining us. So, first question: what is it that should be the role of a police from the point, let's say, a woman files a case or files an FIR, or the family files an FIR that an incident like this has happened?
I'll take you one step before the filing of the FIR. So the victim makes what we call a complaint. Now, this complaint can be either in writing or oral. This offense of rape is a cognizable offense, what in law we call a cognizable offense. So a cognizable offense is an offense which the police can investigate without a warrant from a court. They can also make an arrest without a warrant. So that brings you to the stage of the FIR. And in law, the police are bound to translate the complaint of the victim into what we call today an FIR. And the FIR basically stands for First Information Report. And it's recorded under Section 154 of the Indian Penal Code. So that, I think, is important for people to understand, that they have a right to approach a police officer with a complaint which the police are bound in law to record as an FIR. Now, the Supreme Court held in the now famous case of Lalita Kumari that the police are not only bound in law to register an FIR, but also to give a copy to the victim. This is one of the first points at which things can get messed up: the non-recording of the FIR. So this is the first expectation from the police. This is the answer to your question. Forget about anything else. Forget about the investigation. Please record the FIR.
Right. Now, in this case, the girl or the lady was also then taken to hospital, which also may happen in many cases because there is usually physical violence involved. So how do things proceed thereon?
Right. A very important question, because this brings in the role of the medical profession. Now, after years of advocacy by the women's movement, we managed to get a protocol issued by the Ministry of Health, which tells every doctor everywhere how to proceed with an investigation. One of the most important elements of this protocol is it's a very detailed form which has been provided to doctors, under which, the subjective element is done away with. And there are certain objective questions which they have to fill into the medical report, which becomes the basis of forensic evidence. As you know, one of the important things is they're never supposed to do what we call a two-finger test. Now, the two-finger test was traditionally done to check the elasticity of the vagina, and it was used to argue that the woman is quote unquote accustomed to sexual intercourse, and then seek an acquittal on that basis. So we're here now at the hospital talking about the role of the medical profession. You must understand that the police are not the only uh, authority which are engaged in the investigation of rape. The medical profession plays a very, very important role. So that's the role of the medical profession that they're supposed to discharge when the police bring a rape victim normally to a public hospital.
Right. So if we look at the case in UP now, I mean, regardless of what the finding is and whether that gets contested on whether this lady in question was raped, was this procedure followed?
It's here that things have got fouled up. To the best of my knowledge, it was not followed. But more importantly, we actually have videographed evidence of what we in law call a dying declaration, in which she very clearly says, I was raped. Now, when a woman dies after having made any declaration, whether it's rape or whether it's dowry death or whether it's alleged suicide, where we argue that no, this was murder, this dying declaration has a very special status in law because the woman who made it is dead. And therefore, the evidentiary value of this declaration is very, very high. Under the law presumes that if a person is on the verge of death, they are not going to lie about what they're saying. And so I would say, if you want me to come to the specific facts of this case, she has made a dying declaration. And that is videographed by, I don't know, maybe journalists, maybe anybody. But the fact is, she has made a declaration that she was raped.
Right. Now, she was shifted from one hospital to another one, and then finally to Safdarjung Hospital in Delhi, where she died. Now, after that, now at any of these points, do the responsibilities of the different medical personnel who have been treating her differ or change, or is the primary responsibility on the first medical personnel who saw her?
At every point of time, so long as the victim is in a hospital, the responsibility is entirely on the shoulders of the administration of the hospital and the medical profession. It never shifts from there. Whether it be in the form of treatment, where they can summon the magistrate to come to the hospital and say, come here, because she's not fit to go to you and to give a statement to you about her condition and what she wishes to say. So the responsibility never shifts, to answer your question briefly, until such time as she actually leaves the hospital. And it is their record which is presented at the trial, and they are summoned as witnesses to justify their record.
Right, but chronologically, the onus of proof when it comes to establishing whether there was a rape or not would be with the first hospital, or could that be with the subsequent hospitals as well?
It will be with the first hospital. The subsequent hospitals will have to validate what the first hospital has done or contradict it, as the case may be. But yes, you see, that's the importance of what we call the first information report, the very first. So the very first contemporaneous record always has a very high evidentiary value.
Right. Now, in this case, the person, she passed away, and the body was then released, and then we come to the point about the body being cremated in somewhat unusual circumstances. Now, what should have happened in an ideal situation? The hospital seems to say that this is a medico-legal case, and we've handed over the body to the police, and that's the norm. Then now, of course, there are questions about whether the police had the permission from the family, or whether the family were coerced. But we'll come to that in a bit. But what should or could have been the procedure once the person, in this case, a girl who was, or a lady who was allegedly raped, died?
Yeah, the first thing I would like to know is whether a postmortem was conducted by the hospital handing over the body to the police. Uh, Normally, they would have handed it over to relatives, because once the legal procedure of a postmortem is complete, then the body gets handed over to the relatives. On the contrary, they wait till a relative. Uh, this is a very important point, because the question it raises is who is entitled to the dead body? Okay. And it's only the next of kin. So all legal procedures ought to have been completed at Safdarjung Hospital, after which the body could have been handed over to the relatives. I see no explanation for handing over the body to the police.
And
They
this is,
don't
I mean,
own, they
and
don't
this is
own a dead body. They don't own a dead body.
right.
The state has no claim to anybody's dead body except for the purpose of criminal investigation, which supposedly completed after she was released from Safdarjung Hospital.
No, you're saying that they could have claimed it on grounds that they were continuing the investigation?
If they, for example, if they said we need to do a postmortem, that's a different issue altogether. But as I told you, the postmortem should have been done in Safdarjung Hospital before the release of the body. And now,
and that was not done in this case?
They have included the charge of murder in the FIR, so obviously a postmortem should have been done.
Right, and you're saying that there is no suggestion that there was a postmortem at this point?
I mean, I don't have any information about it.
Right, at this point.
I have not read anything about it in the public domain. All that I'm seeing in the public domain is a denial that there was ever any rape.
Right.
And
okay.
To the best of my knowledge, rape has not been included in the FIR.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, and this is a matter of speculation, so let's not go there. So let me come to the cremation that happened at 3 a.m. at night. So what are the conditions in which, around which, or in which something like this could happen or should be allowed to happen?
There are none. Let me be very clear about it. And that's why I want to come back to the point that I was making. Who does a dead body belong to? I am taking it for granted. I mean, though I haven't heard this articulated loud and clear by the police, that they did it in order to prevent a so-called law and order situation, right? I don't know what is their justification for having cremated at 3 in the morning, that too in the absence of the relatives, not just the absence of the relative, but also denying the relatives the right to be present at the cremation or conduct the rituals in accordance with their beliefs and in accordance with their religion or whatever to which they belong. So if your question is, under what circumstances could this have been done? The clear and categorical answer is no circumstance under which this can be done.
Right. So let me pose a flip question. Suppose the relatives did want the cremation to happen for whatever reason, as soon as possible, as soon as the body arrived in the village, which is about 200 kilometers from New Delhi, and it reached around that time of the night. If they wanted to do that, is there something else which says that in law, which says that, until there is a completion to either the investigation or other paperwork, this shall not happen?
See, as I told you, the investigation and the paperwork has to conclude before the dead body is handed over to anybody. They do not have the right to hand it over to the UP police either, because we have a system where once an FIR is recorded, it doesn't matter in whose jurisdiction it is recorded. You are in Delhi, you are in Safdarjung Hospital, you have custody of the body, you have a dying woman on your hands, you have a woman who has made a dying declaration that she has been raped. It's there and then that you have to conclude all your investigation, because The chain of custody cannot be disrupted. And here they have disrupted the chain of custody by handing it over to the Delhi, to the UP police for reasons best known to them.
Right, but okay, so you're saying that in the chain of events so far, or the sequence of events, the point at which the body, I mean, the cremation, of course, is unusual, but the point at which the body was handed over by the hospital is the other next most unusual point?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And to whom was it handed over? You know, they had an obligation to wait till the relatives came. They had an obligation to alert the relatives. Here is a woman, she's died. You are the next of kin. Come and claim the body. And until then, put it in a morgue.
Right. So now, I mean, just to sort of sum it up, if you were to, you know, I mean, as we hear, there has been another rape case and another a woman has passed away from what we hear. Now, how do we, you know, be more alert to the legal medical system in a manner that maybe even if unfortunately cases were to happen in future, the right kind of pressure is there on the system to ensure that there is justice?
Okay, so I'm going to just leave you with an example which comes from the city of Mumbai. And thanks to the activism of women's groups and health groups in Mumbai, they adopted a specific hospital which belonged to the Mumbai Municipal Corporation. And within the premises of the hospital, they set up what is known as the Dilasa Center. Now, the role of this, we had a very proactive administrator of the Bhava Hospital there, Dr. Seema Malik. She is retired now. And she welcomed this initiative of Dilasa, located it within the premises of the hospital, and ensured that there was a high-level training given to not only the doctors, but the paramedics, the nurses, everybody from top to bottom, with written protocols in place, with everything that is required to train medical professionals of what is required to them. I think that model should be adopted in every single hospital in the country. It's not been done. You are aware that Nirbhay funds were dedicated for this, what is known as one-stop crisis centers. States have not spent money given to them. So you have to have a combination of political will at the head of administration in hospitals, will at the head of administration among the police, and last but not the least, will at the head of administration of the judiciary. I think the judiciary simply lacks administrative skills. It has none. It's not enough to have judicial skills, because by the time you reach the judiciary, the damage is done. So I would say we are witnessing what I in law would describe as quote unquote institutional failure. Okay, institutions down the chain have let down this woman. And it's there that we need to focus our energies. When are institutions going to change?
Right. Indira Jaising, thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insights on how to look at, and hopefully when future cases unfortunately do emerge, our institutional systems are far more alert, and if not, the citizens are more alert to ensure that these things don't happen again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.